Today, in today's video, we're going to learn how to simplify polynomials using the distributive property. We're going to start by remembering the distributive property from earlier grades. Here is your example of the distributive property you would have done just a couple of years ago, maybe in 6th, 7th grade. Alright, if you'll notice, this is multiplication. When we talk about the distributive property, we're talking about multiplication. Part of the reason you know it's multiplication is if you'll notice there is no sign between the 2 and the parentheses. There's no sign at all, so you know, therefore, that it is multiplication. Alright, so let's work this problem out. You're going to distribute this 2 to both numbers. Or in other words, you're going to multiply the 2 times each of these numbers. So we're going to start with 2 times 6 is 12x. And 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. And you're going to look at that. Are 12x and negative 8 like terms? No, they're not, because the 12 has an x and the negative 8 does not. So that is your final answer. You have just combined like terms. Now, all we're going to do is add on. We're going to add on just a bit. And when we add on, we're going to make sure we follow just a couple of steps. All we're doing is putting two things that you already know how to do together into one. Your steps for success are simple. The first thing you're going to do is make sure that you show your work. You're going to show your work while you perform the distributive property, and then by combining like terms. Alright, let's start with the distributive property. If you'll look right here in this problem number 1, you will notice that it's just like you have two distributive property problems together. That's all this is. So you're going to do the distributive property twice. You're going to say 2 times 6x, and you're going to get positive 12x. You're going to say 2 times negative 4, and you're going to get negative 8. You've done the first distributive property problem. Now for the second one, you're going to do 7 times 3x is positive 21x. 7 times negative 1 is negative 7. So you have checked out, you can check off your first step. You have performed the distributive property. Now you simply have to combine like terms. So all you got to do is combine like terms. So what we've got is, look, we've got our 12x. We're going to start with our 12x. Ask yourself, does 12x have any like terms? Well, it does. Positive 21x. They both have an x, so they're like terms. So 12 plus 21 is 32x. We're going to mark that out. Mark that out because we've used them. We're going to go to our next term. Our next term is the constant, or the number by itself, negative 8. Follow along. What's like terms? Well, here's another constant, which is just a number by itself. It's negative 7. So, negative 8, negative 7 are like terms. Alright? So, negative 8 minus 7 is negative. Whoops. Uh-oh. Sorry, guys. Get a little crazy on me here. So, negative 8 minus 7 is negative 15. And that is your answer for this first problem. See how easy that was? You knew how to do the distributive property already. We did it. Then after that, we combine like terms, which is what you learned yesterday. So, then we go to our next problem. These are just examples to help you, remember? Alright, take a look at problem 2. Do you see the distributive property at all with this problem? There's no number out here. Well, let me give you a hint. If there's no number with a variable, like right here, what number goes in front of this x squared? Think about it. Doesn't a 1 go in front of the x squared? Doesn't a 1 go there? Well, guess what? If there's no number on the outside of the parentheses, a 1 goes there. So all you have to do is distribute it. So 1 times 2x squared is 2x squared. 1 times negative 9x is negative 9x. 1 times 12 is positive 12. So you've done the first set of distributive property. And remember, anytime you multiply anything at all by positive 1, you just get the same thing. It's when you have to multiply by negative 1 that your signs change. But it's always good to go ahead and write the 1 and distribute it out, just in case, to work on our precision. Then for the second part of our distributive property, we have negative 3 times 4x. Negative 3 times 4x is negative 12x. Then we have negative 3 times positive 1x squared is negative 3x squared. Then we have negative 3 times negative 7 is positive 21. You've done the distributive property. All we have to do now is like terms. Let's see. Let's look at our 2x squared is positive 2x squared. Look along, does it have any like terms? Well, yes it does. Negative 3x squared. 2 minus 3 gives you negative 1x squared or negative x squared. Remember, it means the same thing. Mark them out. Then we have negative 9x. Let's look along. Do we see any like terms? Well, there's one. And that's all. So we have negative 9 minus 12, which is negative 21x. Mark those out. Then we go in, we have positive 12 and positive 21. They're like terms because they're both constants. 12 plus 21 is positive 33. So this is your final answer. There's no more like terms. You've done all you can do with it. Remember, while we're working on this video, if you have any questions, be sure and just take your time. You can rewind the video. You can do whatever you need. Let's go on to the next problem. We got 2 more left, and that's all. So our next problem, let's look at number 3 before we even begin. If you'll notice with number 3, you have a positive 5 on the outside, so we know we can distribute that. But then if you look at the second part, we do not have a number on the outside of the parentheses. When there's no number on the outside, remember, all you do is put in a number 1. So all you're going to do, the distributive property first. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times negative 2x squared y is negative 10 x squared y. 5 times y squared is positive 5y squared. Then you have negative 1 times 8y squared is negative 8y squared. Negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. Negative 1 times negative 3x squared y is positive 3x squared y. Now notice your coefficients, or the numbers in front of your variables, your coefficients, nor your constant. They all stayed the same. What's changed were the signs, because we did multiply by negative 1. We said negative times positive is a negative. Negative times positive is a negative. Negative times negative is a positive. Now all we have to do now is combine like terms. So let's start at the beginning with our 15. Does 15 have any like terms? Well, you follow it along, you're going to look for other constants. Well, we have one more constant, or a number by itself, which is negative 5. So we have 15 minus 5, which is simply the number 10. Mark those out. Then we have negative 10x squared y. We're going to follow along until we find and see if it has any like terms, and it does. So we have negative 10 plus 3, which gives you negative 7x squared y. Mark it out. Then we have positive 5y squared, and it is like terms with negative 8y squared. So it's positive 5. Positive 5 minus 8 is negative 3y squared. Hopefully you guys are feeling relatively comfortable by now. Remember, the guided notes will be posted also tomorrow. Now let's look down at number 4. Again, look, you have no numbers on the outside of the parentheses, but you do have signs, so let's put our 1s in there. And we use our distributive property. Negative 1 times 12x, negative 12x. Negative 1 times 16 is negative 16. Positive 1 times 5x is positive 5x. Positive 1 times negative x squared is negative 1x squared, or just x squared. Positive 1 times positive 21 is positive 21. Then all we have to do is like terms. Negative 12x is like terms with positive 5x. Negative 12 plus 5 is negative 7x. We've used them, so we mark them out. Then we look at negative 16. Does negative 16 have any like terms? It does. Positive 21. Negative 16 plus 21 gives you positive 5. Mark those out. Then you have negative x squared. Does that have any like terms? No. So you simply just bring it down. And guys, you can write this in standard form. In standard form, it would be negative x squared minus 7x plus 5. You can write it in standard form. Technically, both of these mean exactly the same thing, and neither of them is an incorrect answer. This is just a better way of writing it. Alright guys, I hope this has helped you learn how to simplify using the distributive property.